Paratruth. The lost colony of Roanoke has been one of the greatest mysteries of American history. Speculation of their disappearance ranges from integration into native tribes, attack by supernatural beasts, and even being transported away by advanced technology. Today, we will discuss the history of the Roanoke Colony and the mysterious circumstances surrounding their disappearance. Now Paratruth presents Roa-nope, the history and horror of Roanoke Island. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Paratruth Reborn. This is a pre-recorded show on 107.7 FM New Orleans and United Public Radio Network. My name is Erik.
And I'm Justin.
And I hope everyone is having a wonderful or has had a wonderful Thanksgiving, depending on when you're listening to this.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that we're already here in November. It was just July that you and I were talking about this, and here we are. It's so fast.
Well, and to be on a network so fast after just coming back too, this is awesome.
Yeah, 100%. So, as you heard there in our intro, today we are talking about Roanoke Island, and in particular, the colony that went missing in the 1500s under some very mysterious circumstances. Now, as you guys know, there's been a lot of concern and debate and questions regarding the whole situation. And no matter what we watch on TV or listen to, there's always contradicting evidence or ideas or beliefs about it. And so today we're going to kind of break that down and just share the history of the Roanoke Colony and all of the things that happened or may have happened to the colonists and why they just really disappeared. So definitely sit back, grab yourself a drink, and relax, because this is going to be a very informative episode.
It is. And I've loved it from the first time I've ever seen the research on it. And we'll get into more of what's been happening since we first covered this too.
100%. So a little bit about the history here. In 1587, a small colony was founded on an island off the eastern coast of North America. The settlement would have been the first permanent English colony in the New World had the settlers not disappeared, owing to, of course, unknown circumstances. Now, in the settlement's difficult founding year, its mayor, John White, had left for England to request resources and manpower. But when he returned 3 years later, only to find the settlement empty, his wife, child, and grandchild, which, by the way, was the first English child born in the Americas, having just vanished. And the only thing that he found, aside from maybe some a few buildings and maybe some fence posts, was the word Croatoan and the letters CRO. And if you guys know anything about Croatoan, this has been used in the media many times over. Probably one of the most famous shows to have used it was actually Supernatural. I believe it was like season 5 that they did the Croatoan episode.
American Horror Story did an entire season on it as well.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That is one show that I tried watching and I just could not get into it.
Oh, I love it. Over the past years, there's been a couple of seasons I can't get into, but the Roanoke season was amazing because it does kind of give a speculation of what happened to the colony.
Oh, okay. Um, so now these words were actually carved into trees within the colony's borders, which were the only signs pointing to some sort of an explanation. Now, of course, these were more clues as opposed to direct uh, guidance to where these people went. Uh, the returning crew, as such, was unable to search for the missing colonists uh, because a storm approached just as they came upon the desolate settlement, basically forcing them to turn back for England, which is a little weird to me, actually. Based on that information, because if the storm is approaching, I don't know which way it's approaching from. Is it coming from inland or is it coming from the sea? Because it's coming from the sea. It would have been smarter to just hit the
Go
land
inland,
and
yeah,
get it off the
right.
ocean. But that's something that's not really shared in the research. So we can only assume it was most likely a storm on the sea, though.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, without more information, you really can't tell. And going back that far, we've had some doozies just in this past year. Were they not as bad or worse than what we get right now?
Well, yeah, and that is the thing, because I mean, right now, obviously, we're getting into climate change is what they like to call it nowadays, not
Yeah.
global warming. But as a result, because the earth is warming, we're seeing greater and stronger storms happening more frequently. And of course, we could, I think, to some extent, go back and if, get an idea of the type of seasons that they had in the 1500s and 1600s, the type of weather that they could forecast and whatnot. Now, I'd imagine it was significantly different back then. When you consider this idea of climate change is relatively new or recent for modern times,
Hmm.
who knows for sure. But again, there's no supporting evidence telling us what type of storm it was, whether it was a hurricane or if it was just some inland storm that was, who knows, just turn up the seas, or if the land was getting a little wrecked or whatever. Who knows? We
Hmm.
can only assume so much.
Yeah, and we'll probably get into this when we start talking about the different theories, but that is a pretty good one out there that maybe the storm that they ran into was what happened to the colony.
Right. 100%. Could have been. And that's one of those things uh, that I think has been one of the biggest in terms of possibilities, because it would make sense, especially since they were so close to the coast. We know what the eastern coastline is like when it comes to hurricane season. So
Hmm.
it's very possible um, with the wind of the storm and, of course, the storm surge very well could have washed people out to sea and just, you know, was gobbled up by the ocean, basically. Now, oh, sorry, were you about to say something?
No, I was just
Oh,
gonna be like, yeah, it's one of those things that unfortunately we can only speculate at, and it's there's so much that we don't know. It really makes you want time travel to be real, so we could
mm,
actually get the facts.
100%. I mean, we would know so much more about everything at this point if we could do that. Now, on the basis of the mysterious tree carving, there is one possibility that maybe could be pretty likely, and that's the nearby Croatoan Island, which is now known today as Hatteras Island. Now, in the location to which many believe the colonists moved, at the time of the colony's founding, the Hatteras Indians occupied the island, and a popular theory, of course, supposes that the colonists joined the group of Native Americans to overcome their lack of resources and knowledge of the land. By the way, I don't know why I didn't say this at the beginning here, but this is in modern day North Carolina, for those of you who don't know, here
Mm.
in the Americas. And Hatteras Island is very, very popular, especially during the summer months. So, to think about the history, just the history that we have on the East Coast alone. I mean, there's a lot of history on the East Coast, the oldest of history, really, considering it was first settled prior to Lewis and Clark going out west and finding California.
Right. Yeah.
Now, a supposed piece of evidence for the claim in regards to them going to the Croatoan Island is the existence of carvings in stones that were purportedly made by Eleanor Dare, who was the daughter of John White. Now, these stones, often called the Dare Stones, contain written stories that tell the fates of the colonists and personal anecdotes from Dare to her father. However, they are largely believed to be a hoax and even forgeries of some sort, and there is some academic belief that at least one of the stones may be authentic. So that's really, that's one of those things that you really can't put a lot of salt on, right? You kind of just have to roll with it. And if we don't know for sure whether one of them is actually authentic, but we know the rest are forgeries, it's likely they're all forgeries.
Yeah, and to even put that in the research is odd, because that makes you think that the one that they're saying is authentic, like you said, it is all forgeries. It doesn't make sense that only one would be authentic and the rest were forged for some reason or another.
Right, 100%. It's a little, I mean, I think it's what they have here is wishful thinking. They want something that's authentic that can help lead us to understand the disappearance. And I think that's one thing, I think just as humans in general, like we have a curiosity to know and understand the things that don't make sense to us. I mean, that's why all of us here listening to our podcast or us talking about the paranormal and all of our friends, hosts on this network, we talk about the paranormal because a lot of this stuff is things that we don't even fully understand ourselves, and it's inviting, and we want to know the secrets. We want to uncover the truths and learn. And that's something here that I think possibly is trying to be forced, because if one is authentic, then maybe we can find some sort of truth. However, if we're just believing something's authentic when it's actually a forgery, then that truth isn't a truth, and we're going to believe a lie. And, maybe we'll never know one way or the other whether it's truth or a lie. But I'd rather know the actual truth. And if that means that we don't have evidence and I never learn it, that's fine with me. Like, keep the mystery.
And I don't remember us coming across that particular piece of evidence when we first covered this story.
Well, I mean, this, like evidence is constantly coming up. I mean, there are a number of researchers down in North Carolina still trying to figure this out. Not just, but a few years ago, I watched an episode of Expedition Unknown, where Josh Gates went on the search for the same thing and tried to find out what really happened to the colonists. And of course, there were some thoughts, there was some evidence, or some treasures that were found that kind of pointed to them surviving and just moving inland more away from the sea, possibly connecting with Native Americans and joining their tribes, and also the possibility that the colonists had actually split in various directions and went off as families to wherever they desired to go, and ended up wherever they did. Now, whether or not, again, that is factual, we don't know. All we can do is focus on the evidence we do have and try to come up with our best supporting theories to go along with that evidence.
Yeah, and I hope the theories that we provide are not so far out there for you folks to consider, because there are some a little outlandish, in my personal opinion, anyways.
Oh, 100%. So since 1998, though, the Croatoan Project is researched and provided archaeological evidence to back up the theory that the colonists moved to be with, or at least interacted with, the Hatteras tribe. Various artifacts and objects found within the Croatoan villages that only English settlers had owned or had made at the time have solidified the connection between the two groups. But despite this evidence and many other theories, it is likely that no definitive answer to the mystery of the colonists' disappearance will ever be found. And that's something else you need to consider because considering the number of Native American tribes in the area, it's possible that they had a good working relationship with the colonists, and therefore some of these uh, objects, these English artifacts that they found in the Hatteras tribe area, were simply just goods that were traded, maybe for food or for fur or for something uh, to just kind of, well, for lack of a better word, just trade stuff.
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I mean, there were rumors too that there were some tribes that were fighting with the different colonies that were there too, uh, even the Roanoke colony. But yeah, there was a friendly tribe as well.
right. So, with all of that said, of course, this leaves us with one big question, and that is what really happened. Now, the evidence gives us some sort of ideas or beliefs, and those beliefs are shared by some, and other beliefs are basically contradict the first. So basically, there's just theory upon theory upon theory upon theory, and some of them seem very logical, and others a little more out there. So I think we'll go ahead and just start sharing some of these theories. And now the list of theories that we have and that we're going to share is only a short number. There are plenty more, but we chose to go with the ones that were uh, most popular and also some of the ones that we personally enjoy the most.
Yeah, especially since those ones give us enough speculative view that we can kind of debate if it's even a possibility.
Right. Uh, and you'll see real soon here whether or not we can even debate the possibility. But hey, for one of these, I think Justin, I think one of these are actually very good possibility considering the types of things we're going through today in modern world, I guess. I was about to say modern America, but no, it's happening all over the world and it's on the news channels and yeah, it's getting crazy, folks.
And I've shared some clips with you just today about
You
what we're
did.
talking
I
about.
didn't
Yeah.
get through. I saw the second one that you just sent me tonight, and I only got into part of it because I was watching it as I was waiting for you to jump on here. So I'll have to finish it later. But it's intriguing, is what it is. I think if anything else, or if nothing else, whether true or false, it kind of helps to support the beliefs that I had growing up and some of the incidents that I had encountered as a child. So, but more into that later.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the first one, we've already gone over this, that the colonists probably, well, it was a possibility that they went to Croatoan Island to live with the Croatoan tribe, which was a mix of the Hatteras and Kinnikit tribes to survive. It's probably the most popular piece of theory because of the evidence from the Croatoan project. Is that what it was called? Yeah.
Yes.
And probably just the most logical, in my opinion. Um, the next one kind of coincides with that as well. Not to hijack the theories, Eric, but
No, you're good.
The Croatoan project believes that there was actually an X and Y site. Um, the most recent excavations in Bertie County, North Carolina, continue to pick up on this mystery and find out where these locations were. Archaeologists have found dozens of English style artifacts dating to the 1500s at the X site. This site, which is situated near the mouth of Salmon Creek, was notably near a major Native American community named Mattaquem. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Any of our Native American followers, please just disregard what I just said. But there's been evidence to also include lead seals from bales of cloth, firearms components, tenter hooks. I'm not even sure what that is. Meant for stretching animal hides. Oh, never mind. It's possible that a severe drought and subsequent inability to grow crops also might have been a possibility and made these people move to sites X and Y. Historians believe that sites X and Y might have been a fallback community of sorts for the English settlers, just in case they had to retreat. And then they would have quickly integrated into local native tribes, diluting their English blood and erasing a record of what happened to the original colony. And that's probably why they're having a hard time finding any evidence of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is also kind of an obvious one. All the colonists died due to disease, starvation, or a hurricane. And with the evidence that there might have been a drought, a severe drought on top of that, I would feel that's a very good possibility with disease and starvation. And to go into, the other theory here that the colonists were attacked, maybe it was a combination.
It could have been. But I think when it comes to, early on in American history, people were getting sick relatively quickly and easily and dying because, people from Europe were encountering new illnesses that they hadn't encountered before. America had its own diseases that would just basically rampage the body, and no one knew how to cure them. They tried, and without the help of Native Americans, which, mind you, back then, things between the settlers and the Native Americans weren't kosher in most cases. There were constantly wars that would end up with both sides having men die and women die too. So unless the colonists had some tribe who they had consistent contact with and had a good working relationship with, they simply couldn't figure out or know how to cure the diseases. Now, of course, that's something that Native Americans were very well in tune with. They knew the illnesses; they could handle it and heal themselves and others if the opportunity arose. But unfortunately, that's just not how everything went in early America. So,
and the English actually brought a lot of diseases to the Native Americans too, like scarlet fever, which the Native Americans had never come across until the English and other colonists started coming to the Americas.
Right. And so, with that said, you got to also consider, like, this isn't just English settlers and Native Americans who are potentially fighting and killing each other, but there's also Spanish explorers, which was a really big issue for the English. There were a lot of maritime fights or wars on the seas during this time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if the English had settled a piece of land and the Spanish showed up, guess what? They want that land for themselves. And so again, here we have more of a bloodbath. And yes, it's very possible that some Spanish explorers had showed up to the Roanoke Island, and they were the ones who either killed and probably would have killed many of them and taken others as hostages or slaves for whatever purposes.
Yeah, and I actually didn't realize that there were wars between the Spanish and the English at that point. I didn't realize Spain was trying to get colonies here as well. I mean, obviously, with Christopher Columbus, he was working for the Spanish flag,
Right.
and I get he was kind of the one that has been deemed the discoverer of America, even though it was South America that he had landed. But yeah, I had never realized that unless my history teachers failed me, and or my memory has been one of the two.
Right.
And that's why I'm starting to really feel that there's more of a combination thing here than just the three that we've listed already, because say disease or starvation were starting to take its toll on this colony.
Right.
I mean, there is history that's showing that the Hatteras tribe was sympathetic to the settlers and were trying to set up, trade with them and basically be friends with these white people. And if they were to be having these problems with sickness and starvation, it would make sense. Some of them would be dying or starve to death, but that the Hatteras, which eventually became the Croatoan tribe when they merged with the Kinnikit, would try and help them and even suggest to them, hey, come to our tribe and we'll help. We'll try and heal the sick and even feed you guys.
Yeah,
The Hellcats have woken.
They woke up. Dang it! I thought for sure they would sleep the entire show.
My hellhounds are, so I'm thankful for that.
Good. Well, speaking of hellhounds,
would you consider this next one a hellhound type creature?
No, but it reminds me of them. So, I mean, this is personally one of my favorite theories, and it is a little wild, but hey, considering how popular this particular cryptid has become, actually has always been, but it has recently become over the last few years, especially with the introduction of the dog man, who has been popularized over the last 5 to 8 years, especially. This one just kind of stands out to me, and it would make sense considering North Carolina's history. And so that is, of course, the speculation that werewolves were involved in the disappearance of the Roanoke colonists. Now, whether they were werewolves or dogmen or whatever, who knows? But there's a lot of theories surrounding the cryptid attack that could be a possibility. It could be supported. Now, before discrediting this theory altogether, like most people probably would, especially scientists, it should be noted that
scientists, I feel that they would believe this. Come on.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
The science is right there in front of them.
It's right there in front of them. It makes 100% sense. Yes. So many of these sightings. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. It should be noted that sightings of werewolf-like creatures have actually been witnessed in the Roanoke Island area for quite a few years. Now, many sightings are more recent. However, werewolves have been encountered in America since before the colonists stumbled upon the land, or at least the idea of them. Much of the American lore, though, stems from Europe, which would make sense since we have the English coming over to Native America, or Native America coming over to what was Native America, but coming over to America and bringing their mythology with them, which would often mingle with that of the Native Americans. Now, especially with current day, with America being a melting pot for people of various cultures and beliefs, the quote unquote American werewolf has gained itself notoriety as being one of the most horrifying and dangerous cryptids lurking in the shadows and swamps of North American territory. But this particular monster, of course, extends beyond its description of a human shapeshifter and stems into the more commonly referred to dogman, whose history goes back as far back as ancient Israel, which is just fascinating. I did research on this, I think about a year ago when I was working on another podcast that I was developing and didn't bring out into the light yet. But when I learned of that, it's just crazy to think about, especially even going back to ancient Egypt. I mean, the idea of the dogman existing in the form of Anubis, for example, who was half human or who was human basically with the dog's head or some sort of canine-like creature's head. So they go back.
Depending on the depiction that you see anyways.
Yes, 100%. And the dogman, mind you, is absolutely horrifying when you think of when you hear the theories and the stories about the creature. There is some evidence, I shouldn't say evidence, but stories that the dogman actually can speak like a human can. Of course, it comes out more like a growl and a grumble than clear articulated words. But nonetheless, to think that these were creatures that possibly lived alongside humanity and interacted with them is kind of insane. And yet there is evidence, ancient evidence supporting that. And of course, we're not going to get into all that tonight, but there are future episodes where we probably will be touching base on that. So now, this this idea of the werewolf is something that has really been mocked up by the media, right? You think of the Wolfman, especially Universal's Studios Wolfman, especially. The idea of a shape-shifting beast that comes from a human form and transforms into a wolf goes back quite a while. And of course, it stems back to some early diseases in Europe where people just assumed that they were taking on some sort of wolf-like appearance when really the disease they had was causing their the skin around their fingernails to recede and their gum lines to recede, causing this look of a more animalistic person. However, it goes even beyond the human shapeshifter idea and actually also steps into the spiritual realm. So there's this spiritual shapeshifting werewolf-like creature from the Navajo culture. And with all of this known, there is a potential for the Roanoke colonists to have been attacked by one or more of either of the three wolf-like creatures. That is the werewolf, the dogman, or the spiritual shape-shifting werewolf-like creature. Which, by the way, if you don't know who this particular shapeshifter is, it is the Skinwalker. Skinwalker is kind of weird because some people don't like to even say the name Skinwalker, and there's another cryptid that we're going to be talking about here shortly that also people don't like to say. But there's some sort of weird, what's the word? Weird superstition that people think this entity is going to just pop up out of nowhere if you say the name. Let me tell you something. And of course, to each their own, maybe depending on how you open the door to the spiritual realm, if you're capable of doing that, or if you don't know whether or not you might do that, then it makes sense. But I've been using the word shapeshifter and Wendigo a lot, pretty much for the last nearly 20 years. And I've never once seen either, sadly.
Well, what about he who must not be named?
He who must not, which one?
Voldemort.
Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, I haven't seen him either, so apparently that doesn't work.
Well, and there would be those that speculate that those particular two creatures would only be relevant to the Native American tribes, that they don't want to say it because it's a part of their culture and it would bring it upon them because it's very more well known in Native American culture than it is in, I'll just say, white man culture.
Right. 100%. Now, with that said, regarding these three creatures, we can argue that the colonists likely weren't attacked by them or any creature for that matter, because there actually was no sign of struggle or war, at least not in the evidence that we have currently. Even any of White's original manuscripts, there was no evidence pointing to any sort of struggle. So, and that, with that said, that kind of also discredits some of the war theories that we had, whether with the Spanish or with Native Americans. So that is a curious thing.
Well, let me put it to you this way too. If, say, it was only like a year and a half after White left, that they had to run away and carve the Croatoan and crow onto the other tree. Or was it a fence post for crow?
Yeah, supposedly.
If there had been any type of skirmishes, that could have been all washed away. I mean, we literally just talked about how they had to turn back because of a particular storm.
Right.
And multiply that times a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. We don't know when they actually left the colony.
Right. Oh, you're absolutely right. There is that possibility. And so with that said, like even though we can discredit the possibility of an attack since there was no evidence, there is also, as you said, the idea or the belief or the theory that maybe they were indeed washed away. If there was any blood, if there were any, if it was a werewolf, if there were any limbs left over hanging out on the ground or whatever else, then yes, if there was a heavy storm, especially, I mean, they were right on the coast. So the tide could easily wash up and wash that out in a matter of an hour, and it'd be clean and new, and no one would ever suspect a thing. But you would think that there might be some sort of evidence still buried in the sand because the ocean doesn't wash everything out. It leaves things behind too and just buries it. But nonetheless, like this is one of those things where, again, I think it's an interesting theory. I think it could be a possibility. As it is with cryptids, we don't have any, significant evidence that 100% proves any one cryptid that any of us in the paranormal community talk about. That is, of course, the werewolves, the Bigfoot, vampires, etc. If you consider a vampire a cryptid, that's the whole nother thing. But I do, because it's as mysterious as like the werewolf or the Bigfoot, and I think they should be kind of deemed in the same classification. But that's just my opinion.
Well, here's another thing that discredits the werewolf theory, and I'm not saying that it's not a possibility, but if the werewolf attack were to have happened that wiped the colony completely out in where they were settled, they would have never had that opportunity to write Croatoan and crow. Like crow, okay, I get it. Maybe they were interrupted as they were trying to write it again. But I mean, if it were werewolves, maybe they were already getting ready to leave, and they scrawled out Croatoan to tell White where they were going. They started to write it again on one of the posts so that they kind of left a trail, and they hear wolves in the distance. They don't know that it's werewolves, and start moving faster. And then the werewolves take them out before they even reach Croatoan Island.
I suppose that could be the case. Or what if it was the werewolf, or in this case, the dogman, who is very much human-like in many ways? What if they're the ones that etched the words Croatoan and crow on the post as a warning to anyone who'd come back?
But what would be the warning, though?
I mean, we only know the physical evidence of the Croatoan Island and the Croatoan peoples. Right. But what if those Croatoan peoples were also themselves werewolves?
That would make sense then. The biggest issue is, we don't know what that scrawled out word meant. Was that, please don't go to Croatoan Island, we were being attacked, this is our evidence to say as such, right? Or we fled there, please come find us. Or,
and along with like a warning, it could have been a warning to the Croatoan people. Like, hey, True. This is what happened to the Roanoke Island colonies. You come looking for them, you're next. Wipe you off the face of the earth. And maybe that's why the word crow was there. It was kind of a symbolism. Like, here you are as Croatoan. Come looking, and you'll become just the crow. Just the 3 letters. Nothing left. We'll dismantle you and destroy you, etc. Now, again, we can go into some logic here and admit that there has been no evidence really at all that werewolves existed at the time or at all, period. There's no
Right.
archaeological evidence for it. Now, of course, we do see modern evidence for the dogman, especially in Michigan, Wisconsin, northern Ohio, and even it's starting to stretch down into the mid and southern Ohio regions. And I do know that there's been some people in West Virginia claiming that they've seen something like a dogman as well. Uh, Here's the thing about dogmen, werewolves, really any canine, especially with the wolf title, whether they're human or not, or half human or not, they're also part canine. And when it comes to the wolf, they travel in packs. And not only do they travel in packs most of the time, but wolves tend to wander and they move into new territories. And so it's very interesting that I think we see something like the Dogman getting its fame in Michigan initially, and then spreading to Wisconsin and then down into northern Ohio. There's even been evidence of a Dogman here in Cleveland, Ohio. There's been quite a few, actually, encounters with some sort of dogman like creature. And it's one of those things, man, I kid you not. I get scared to drive through or walk through the woods at night because of that reason, especially because, like, I live only a few minutes from the national park, Cuyahoga Valley National Park, which is, I mean, national parks are big in general, but we have one of the largest national parks in the country. And so when you're walking through there and you consider the amount of things that people have witnessed in the national park systems throughout the world, one of the big ones, aside from Bigfoot, is werewolf like encounters or dogman like encounters. And there have actually been a number of people, primarily a number of sheriffs who have come across, or park rangers who have come across this dogman like entity, has even pulled their gun out and shot at it and have done nothing to the creature. And thankfully, they live to tell the story. But these people, I've watched videos with them and they seem legit. They seem scared, like truly petrified. Again, of course, we can only go by so much on what we see because some of these people could be actors and just, really turning up the volume for us for fun. But again, we don't know. Thank you for telling us that too. See, you got to hear from the canine. He
Yeah.
understands.
The hellhounds woke up.
So, with all of that said, and trust, I want to dive much deeper into the whole werewolf and dogman stories and theories, but we're not going to do that tonight. But don't worry, I know they're big, they're popular, and many of us want to hear more. So, just to let you know, we will be having a full episode discussing the history, the sightings, and stories of the wolf in the near future. Uh, Now, the second thing that I do want to note, as I mentioned earlier, is that I'd like to add that since we're on this idea of cryptids and spiritual entities, is of course the possibility of the cannibalistic monster of the Alakoan speaking people, which is the Wendigo. And the Wendigo has also been attributed to the disappearance of the colonists for a number of reasons. Now, since according to the mythology, a Wendigo is created due to human cannibalism, greed, weakness, a shaman curse, or a dream of a Wendigo, it is possible that the creature worked its way through the colony from the inside. When you consider that the colonists were suffering from a lack of food and livable conditions, any of the above, that is, greed, cannibalism, weakness, um, could certainly attribute to the creation of the creature and could have taken hold of any one or more people within the colony. And being that the Wendigo was very, very, I mean, he's still very popular, but it was very popular back then in Native American lore. And if it's true, then the spirit could have possessed any of those people. And mind you, that is, by the way, how a Wendigo appears or happens. It's not a cryptid like many of us believe. It actually originates as a spiritual entity that possesses a person who has committed an act of greed, cannibalism, weakness, etc. So with that said, if it did that, then it's very possible that the colonists themselves turned on each other and either forced a flee, and then the Wendigo went off after them or left on its own, or it just took everybody out. And again, we go back to the theory that the storm washed everything away.
Or there wasn't a Wendigo and something else happened to the colony altogether.
Like what, Justin?
Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
There is the theory out there that extraterrestrials came to Earth for some reason, honed in on this Roanoke colony, and perhaps vaporized the entire colony.
Or
of course,
abducted.
Do it.
I said, or abducted.
Or abducted. Of course, there isn't any evidence to say that there was a colonist alien interaction, but you could explain the seemingly sudden disappearance of the Roanoke Island people by them being whatever it would have happened with the aliens, whether there was a skirmish, whether they were abducted for whatever reason. But, and the big but of all of this, same concept here. If they were vaporized or that they were abducted, how would they have had the time to carve Croatoan and Crow into these wood, I'll just call them structures, before they were taken? Again, could have been a warning if it was extraterrestrials. The Croatoans, like, we were here, we saw what happened. Don't come find us. Your people are gone.
Right. I mean, yes, that's a possibility. And of course, we have to consider, I mean, here's the thing. We don't know what an abduction, like, the only thing we know about abductions is based on what people have shared with us who claim to have been abducted. So we don't know how many people could be abducted at once and whether or not there would have been one, UFO, I guess, or multiple that can take people all at once or very quickly. So if it was a slow process that took place, one after another or a couple of nights over the course of a few months, there'd be plenty of time to write Croatoan on there. If someone decided to flee, maybe it was one person, for all we know, that wrote Croatoan and then fled to Croatoan Island to seek help. And when they came back, everyone was gone. Or maybe they just didn't come back. Maybe they just didn't want to be there. Maybe it was a child running away and wanted to let their parents know, give them some sort of evidence or a lead as to where they went. Who knows? I mean, again, that's one of the most mysterious words that we come across here in American history is the word Croatoan and what that actually means. And of course, again, we have options here. There are plenty of theories. Theories abound, actually, but we can't pinpoint any single one. We kind of just have to make up our mind and go with that lead until we find a dead end. And then you got to start over. And yeah, it's a process that has been going on for many years. And my guess, many more years to come.
So I do this to you every episode.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I did this to you when we originally did this.
Yeah.
If you had to put your finger on it, what do you think happened to
the
these
Wolfman,
people?
man, came out of the Universal Pictures from the future, jumped through the past and through some alien technology. See, now we got aliens and werewolves, and killed the whole crew, killed everybody.
Killed the whole crew? They're colonists.
That's what I meant.
Killed the whole crew of the movie, then jumped back into the past, killed the colonists.
Yes, that's what I meant. I mean, hey, for all we know, I mean, there's pretty strong supporting evidence, or at least theories, that the Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Sasquatch is actually just extraterrestrial life. These are entities from space. And if that's the case, why can't the werewolf, the dogman, any canine creature, I mean, heck, nowadays we think cats are from space. It's possible. I don't know.
I feel they're from the afterlife, but
Cats?
yeah,
I mean, that's possible too.
or have a leg into the afterlife. Let me put it
Well,
that way.
yes, that I agree with because my cats have seen some things and they're kittens. They're only 14 weeks old and they've already seen things. So I feel bad for them, but also like it's crazy. Uh, Salem, you know this story, but I didn't tell anyone on the show, but a few weeks ago, my cat Salem and Binks are their names, they're brothers from the same litter. But Salem was, I really don't know what happened. I just heard like he was sitting on the floor just cleaning himself. Uh, and I walked in the kitchen just maybe 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. I heard all this commotion, came back to check on him right away. And like his water bowl was spilled. The two food bowls are flipped over. Food was scattered clear across the living room, which is probably like a good 20, 25 feet or so. So that's a pretty good distance for a cat to kick stuff when they're freaking out. And then he was all puffed up, like cats get all fluffy when they're scared or angry. And him and Binks had this kind of like tussle. They were like, Binks knew something was wrong. He wasn't upset, but Salem was. And once I was finally able to coax them out, I kept noticing Salem looking down the hallway at nothing. At least I saw nothing. Even when he was standing next to Binks and they were okay again, he would eat some food or drink some water, then stop and look back down the hall and just stare down there. And now my house has been haunted in the past for practically for 60 years. It's been haunted. And I still have things occasionally kind of pop up every now and then, as many haunted homes do, even after you cast something out. So whether or not he saw one of the spiritual entities that have been here before, in this case, most likely a dark spiritual entity, considering how he reacted, who knows? But there is, of course, the theory that cats can see into the nether realm, if you will, right? Uh, into the space in which ghosts live, I suppose, and that's especially popular. Hey, don't just laugh, man. I'm not good at coming up with words on the fly.
I feel you're skirting around the answer that I asked you for.
Sorry, it's just rabbit trails. It happens. Sorry, I got to
Finish your
start talking
story.
about cats. Anyway, okay, I'll stop there. So yeah, with everything said, I think what most likely happened is that they ran out of food, they ran out of warmth and fire and stuff like that, and they simply fled inland and probably connected with a tribe who was able to help them out. At least that's what I would like to hope, because the other possibility is that all the first part of my answer is true. They ran out of food and shelter and warmth and they moved inland and they came across a tribe who wasn't so pleasant and they ended up getting killed anyway, or taken as some sort of slaves or something.
Well, for them to be completely wiped out, and I think this is probably why a lot of people believe this, is after so long, you would think that they would have tried to go back or leave a couple people at an outpost of some kind after things had kind of died down, whatever happened there,
Right.
to meet White and let him know, hey, look, this is what happened. We tried to leave you a message, but it kind of took forever. So we decided to come back and find you. And that's not to say if they fled, they wouldn't have wanted to come back because there was so many problems there.
Right.
But I mean, me personally, if I had landed on a new continent, I'm trying to make a life for myself here, I would want to go back to the original site to check on what is going on, if it's safe to go back, or maybe they just felt safe where they were. But with their family gone, you would think the White family would have been like, no, we have to go back. We got to tell Dad where we are, bring him here. This is what happened.
Right. And unfortunately, that's like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he was meant to be gone for 3 years. I don't know if it was supposed to be
Right.
much shorter, and it just happened to extend. They gave up hope, thinking the
He wasn't
sea
coming back. Yeah.
consumed, got stuck in a storm. The boat sank, and White was dead. They don't know because back then, the
No communication.
telecommunication was
Yeah.
just whoever can get from one side of the ocean to the other fastest to deliver a message. So yeah, I mean, that is very much a possibility. If he didn't come back at a certain time, like I would imagine he said he'd be back at a certain time, like this date or this month or whatever. And if that didn't happen, then one can only assume the worst and they moved on. And I think the only way to really know would be to go through some sort of DNA and ancestral um, history through Native American people to see if indeed there was any sort of recolonization between the Roanoke colonists and one of the native tribes in the area. Because if that was the case, it likely would have been integrated into,
Integrated.
oh my
There you go.
gosh, integrated. Thank you. I need water. It, what Justin said, into the tribe, and therefore would have been given off in marriage, most likely. Um, And if that's the case, then we could certainly find some sort of DNA history. Now, of course, that would take a lot of time because you're going back, you know, several hundred years here.
Mhm.
Um, but nonetheless, that is a possibility. And uh, as our technology advances, I think that is something that will become possible, even more so in the near future, most likely, rather than the late future.
Well, this Croatoan project is still going too. Yeah,
Mhm.
they may find evidence, as they continue to dig. Um, but yeah, I mean, if it were, if I had to put a finger on it, yeah, I feel they were trying to find some place for some um, reprieve, whatever problems they were going through,
Yeah.
and they were probably trying to go to Croatoan Island and meet with the Hatters and tribe to help in some way. Um, are the other ones possible? I'll say, yeah. I feel anything is possible.
Mhm.
However, the two more outlandish theories that we've gone over um, is all speculative because we can't even prove that Dogman, werewolves, the Wendigo, even skinwalkers is even real. Yes, I know all of you that are going to argue with me out there that there is tons of evidence, there's video, there's this and that. But without a body, with the invention of Photoshop, After Effects, any of the Adobe products, so we'll put it that way, and now AI, who's to say that any of those could have been faked and were faked or not?
Well, and beyond that, I mean, especially when you consider something like the Wendigo or the Skinwalker. I mean, these are spiritual entities in most cases. And so when we do see evidence, and mind you, there has been evidence found at Skinwalker Ranch, for example. This evidence has been mostly spiritual, and so when you see this shadow-like creature with glowing eyes, I mean, it doesn't mean it's necessarily a Skinwalker. It could be any number of spirits, if it's a spirit at all. Uh, but nonetheless, again, like until we can actually somehow sit one down and talk to it, we really can't know for sure, unless you're one of those people, where it's like, if you know, because you know. And I get it because I'm there too with many of the spiritual things. You can't explain it, but you know it because you witnessed it. So that's how I am with aliens too.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where, again, still all speculative out there until even though the videos I've sent you where there's whistleblowers and everything else, until
Right.
the government comes out and says it and presents a live alien to all of humanity, not just on TV, in real life. Um, there's nothing to say that
How does
it's for sure.
what do you mean not on TV but in real life? Because
like get a crowd of people
okay,
at like a conference of some kind and say,
okay.
hey, look.
So not in like a military base in some dark room where they're saying,
Well,
"Hey,
I mean,
here's."
if they want to try and wrangle up all of humanity and bring them into one military base.
Well, I mean, instead of sending out a video from a secret location in a room where there are no other people, minus the few that are on TV on the camera.
Yes, I get what you're saying. However, the rest of humanity, if they only got a few people in, could still be saying, hey, look, that's just all fake. What they would probably have to do is have multiple places where there's these conferences taking place and being like, look, yeah, we said aliens weren't real. Here's a gray right here, and they walk out on stage for multiple locations to see the evidence. That would be the only way I feel, we could say aliens were real. But anything that we missed for our Thanksgiving episode?
Nopety nope. I don't think so.
All right. All right, folks. That is it for Thanksgiving for the Paratruth boys. I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. I hope that you have a very, very happy Thanksgiving or Indigenous Peoples Day, whatever you celebrate. Yeah, we've got a lot of great stuff coming up for you guys. And we finally have some guests lined up, and we're super excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, until next week, where you'll find us same time, same channel. My name's Justin.
And I'm Erik. Peace.